Welcome to the YouTube explanation of articles, a, an, and the. Articles, in a way, are like adjectives. They point to something. They point to a particular noun or in some cases an adjective. But there are certain rules concerning the use of articles. The rule is, a and an point to indefinite nouns and adjectives. Now, the letter A, in particular, refers to words that begin with a consonant. A book, B, of course, is a consonant. A table, T, is a consonant. And you can see the other examples there. Now, skip down to the middle line. It says, a difficult task. Difficult is an adjective. It describes task. But it is correct to say a difficult task. Difficult begins with a consonant. An, on the other hand, while still referring to indefinite nouns and adjectives, but only those that begin with a vowel, that is A, E, I, O, or U. So we have expressions like an elephant, that's correct because E is a vowel. An instructor, that's okay because you see I is a consonant, and you can skip down a little bit further. Here we have an interesting book. In this case, it is an adjective. Interesting begins with the vowel I. It is correct to say an interesting book, not a interesting book. You can refer to an emergency, pretty obviously, because that begins with the vowel E. The vowels are A, E, I, O, U. The is in a slightly different category. The article the pertains to definite as opposed to indefinite nouns and adjectives. Thus, it would be correct to say the manager. That's quite definite. Not just any manager, but the manager. The cola drink. The rooster, perhaps looking at it at the same time. The assignment, the swimmer, so forth and so on. Now, when using a or an, you must be careful about exceptions to the rule. There's a category of exceptions for words that begin with H, and here they are, or some of them. An hourglass. That might strike you as being wrong because you say an, oh, that's supposed to precede words that begin with a vowel, but H is a consonant, not a vowel. Doesn't matter. It is one of the exceptions to the rule. The first sound there is an ow, o, hour, OW sound. You can say a horse. It's an H sound. That's perfectly good the way it is. But look at this one, which is kind of close to that. An honor. Here the first sound is an AW sound. You don't say a honor, it's an honor. A horse, but an honor. Look at the next one. If you're an heir to a fortune or real estate or money or whatever it is that you received it in a will, that's heir, H-E-I-R. We will use an heir. The first sound is an EH sound. Something that looks almost the same, but is handled differently, is a hair, like a hair from your head. We're not going to say an hair. The words beginning with H are pronounced differently here. We'll talk about a hair, but an air, instead of hey, H for hair sound. There's more exceptions when we see the U sound. And here, for example, we might talk about a European trip. Oh, well, that looks like a vowel, E, A, E, I, O, U, and you're tempted to say an European trip. Wrong. If it has a U sound, it comes under the exceptions to the rule. We will talk about a European trip. Next one, a uniform. Policeman wears a uniform. He or she doesn't wear an uniform. That would be wrong because all of these have a U sound at the beginning. This little character here is a unicorn with that horn in the head, and we could say a unicorn, even though that is a vowel. We're not going to say an unicorn. A eulogy is words that are spoken at a funeral of someone. That's what a eulogy is, and it has a U sound, just like these others have U sound. So we're going to use a. We're not going to use an in that case. Now, in general, we will not be using a or an with nouns that are non-count. The things you simply can't count. Now, I can count students, I can count books, I can count cars, but there are some things that are non-count. Salty, for example, is a non-count item. Rain, how do you count rain? Knowledge, knowledge is a perfect good noun, but it is a non-count noun. And there are some others here. Paper, tea, work, loyalty. Loyalty is non-count. So you got to be careful about trying to put an article in these kinds of sentences. Here's an example of a sentence. It says, provide an information to the supervisor. Well, that's wrong, because the rule here is if it's a non-count thing, and information is non-count, we're not going to use a or an. So it would be more correct to say, provide information to the supervisor. Here's another one. A knowledge is a good thing. Knowledge is non-count. So we don't want the a. It is correct to say knowledge is a good thing. Don't use a or an in those non-count items. Last one here is, please hand me a sugar for my tea. That would be wrong, because sugar in a granular form is, you can't count grains of sugar. It's impossible. However, I will tell you this. Some years ago, sugar in the form of cubes, sugar cubes were very common, in which case you could say, please hand me a sugar cube for my tea. But if it's just ordinary sugar that you scoop up with a spoon, we don't want that a in there. Please hand me sugar for my tea. Okay? Those are non-count items. Acronyms are kind of abbreviations for things that we recognize, names of organizations, names of buildings, whatever. Here we're going to say an MBA. You say an, well, you're looking for a vowel, and M is not a vowel. But the first sound is an M. MBA, of course, is a Master of Business Administration degree. It's correct to say an MBA. A GRE, Graduate Record Exam. That's okay. That's okay the way it comes. A GRE. We're not going to say an GRE. An NFL coach. Well, again, you might be tempted to say a NFL coach, but because you don't see a vowel here. But these are all acronyms. MBA, GRE, NFL are acronyms. And in this case, it's an exception to the rule, and so we would want to say an NFL coach. A department, that's National Football League, by the way. A DOJ employee, that's a Department of Justice. And here it's correct to say a DOJ employee. The first sound is a D. This is an interesting one. When a ship is in trouble on the high seas, they send out a signal called an SOS. It's called an emergency signal. It would be correct to say an SOS signal. I don't know what SOS stands for. I just know it's an emergency signal. And don't say a SOS signal. These, again, are all acronyms that look for exceptions. Let's look at some of these. And I'll give you the answers to each of these questions, but think about them. Here we say, War and Peace is blank, interesting book. It is also blank, classic. How do you think you would answer that? War and Peace is a or an? An interesting book. And why? Here's a vowel. It is also, you're not going to say an classic. A classic would be correct there. Here's another question, sentence. Maria lives on blank island of Puerto Rico. Now, that is a very specific island, Puerto Rico. So, the would be correct there because it's definite. Remember that a and an are for non-specific items or indefinite items. We're going to use the if we're very particular about the thing we're talking about, the island. We're not going to say Maria lives on a island of Puerto Rico because that implies that there are many islands. There aren't. Have you seen blank newspaper? I can't find it. You're out looking for the newspaper. In this case, we're going to want to say, have you seen the newspaper? We don't use a newspaper because that implies just a newspaper. Could be today's newspaper, yesterday's newspaper, the neighbor's newspaper, the newspaper they sell at the 7-Eleven. We're more particular. It's the newspaper that comes to our house. And since we're fairly specific, we want to look for and ask about anyone seeing the newspaper. Here you go. Do you know who invented blank computer? A, an, or the? Do you know who invented a computer? I don't think that fits. Do you know who invented an computer? No, it's even worse. The is the only one that's going to work in that case. It's quite specific. What is blank capital of Maryland? What do you think it should be? I think what we want there is the capital of Maryland. You're not going to say what is a capital of Maryland. That implies there's more than one capital. There's only one. Here's somebody saying, maybe it's a girlfriend who is waiting for her boyfriend, and she's telling her friends, she says, he should have called me blank hour ago. A hour ago? Remember, there's a special rule in the case of H sounds. In that case, we want an. He should have called me an hour ago. Watch for those exceptions, the H and the U sounds. They visited Maria in blank hospital. The only two that might work in a hospital, that might work in some cases, but I think they're fairly specific about a particular hospital. And if they're fairly specific, then I want to say the hospital. I faced blank difficult problem at work today. Is it a difficult problem that faced everyone there? Or is it just a problem that this one worker had to encounter? I think what we want is the A. It is non-specific. It's not specific to all the workers. It is a difficult problem that this one person encountered. Sam and I have reached blank understanding. The understanding? No. A understanding? No, because this is a vowel right here. Probably an would be correct. Sam and I have reached an understanding, and there's the vowel. A soldier wears, does he wear the uniform, a uniform, or an uniform? Remember, there's special cases you have to be, that sometimes apply. They didn't apply here, but they will apply here. A soldier wears a uniform. A policeman wears a uniform. Because it has a U sound. Understanding does not have a U sound. Uniform, unicorn, eulogy, that U sound asks for an A up front here. Okay, here's somebody parking a car. He parked, we're talking about just any old car or a particular car. I think it's a particular car. It's the family car or something. So it would be correct to say he parked the car in A, an, or the underground garage? That kind of depends on how many garages there are. If there's an underground garage in the local area, you could say an. He parked the car in an underground. There's a vowel here, U. If you wanted to say he parked the car in the underground garage, that implies that there's a specific underground garage somewhere. It might be the only one in town or the only one in the city. That's hard to believe. Here, the people who are speaking, they know which car they're talking about, and they know which underground garage they're talking about. Here's a person makes a remark. In my opinion, blank education should be free. We have three choices for our articles, A, an, or the. In my opinion, A, education? No, that won't work because I have a vowel here. An? Possibly. In my opinion, the education. That's kind of a stretch. It hurts your ears. I think what we want is an education. Okay, that concludes our discussion about articles, and I hope it's helpful. If you want to learn more, I recommend The Only Grammar Book You'll Ever Need by Susan Thurman. You can get that on eBay for about $4. It used to be available for about $3.50. It's now $4, and that's for a book that's used. Used is just fine. Don't go buy a new book. And by the way, I don't get any commission, or I don't get anything out of the selling of these books. I just pass on the information. So, hope to see you next time.